Hall Wilcox acknowledges the traditional custodians of the lands on which this podcast is recorded. They are the first storytellers of this land. We pay our respects to their elders, past and present, and to all First Nations people joining us today.
Hi everyone, and welcome to Hall Wilcox's newest podcast, Living the Law Grad Life. My name is Ariana Sadopoulou, and I'm a law grad based in the Melbourne office.
My name is Sean Kemple, and I'm a law graduate based in the Brisbane office.
In this podcast, we're going to be taking a deep dive into law and what it means to be part of Hall Wilcox. As graduates, Sean and I thought it would be beneficial to hear from those in the profession and what it means to practice the law. For our first episode, we thought it would be a fantastic idea to share our story and what it means for us to be graduates with Hall Wilcox. We hope to share some knowledge on junior positions, such as being a law clerk, paralegal, or law graduate. We hope to provide some inside tips on applications, how to best tackle your interview process, and many more things.
And in the second half of this episode, we will then introduce you to a very special guest, Managing Partner Tony McVean. Before we talk to Tony, Ariana and I thought it would be a good idea just to share some of our stories and experiences with you. So Ariana, you started at Hall Wilcox as a paralegal and then a clerk. Could you share what made you apply for Hall Wilcox?
Thank you, Sean. Absolutely. So I was studying a Juris Doctor at Monash University, and I learned about Hall Wilcox through the Clerkship Guide launch and the Monash Career Fairs. I was very lucky to attend the Careers Fair and network with the firm, learn about the kind of work that the different practice groups focus on, and also a little bit more about the culture and the different initiatives that we do here at Hall Wilcox. I went through the clerkship process application, which was quite a onerous process, but the Hall Wilcox one was actually my favorite one. The reason being is because there was no psychometric test. I definitely wanted to avoid that, given that I'm not particularly fluent in mathematics. And I also really enjoyed the interview process. So I heard a lot about the culture at Hall Wilcox and the different initiatives that the firm has and how much it cares about its people. And I really did see that during the interview process, because the people who were interviewing me asked a lot of questions about my personality and my hobbies and interests outside of the law. I think there was definitely an interest in getting to know me as a person and what I stand for. And I think that really aligns with our values here at Hall Wilcox, specifically stay true. And yeah, from then on, I was able to, I was lucky enough to land an offer, and I chose to clerk in the June-July winter program. But I also started as a paralegal at the firm in January of that year, as there was an opening in the library. I was lucky enough to get contacted as part of the clerkship pool, and I was invited to an interview, and I was successful, which was great. So I got a very good insight into the firm before starting my clerkship process, which really helped me during that 4-week period. And yeah, then I returned to my paralegal role after my clerkship, and here I am now as a grad.
Yeah, of course. It sounds like you actually had quite a great experience going through the application process. I don't know about you, but sometimes these processes can be quite arduous and a little bit intimidating. Could you describe perhaps what you learned about the application process, or do you have any key takeaways or any insights that really made you think, oh, this is something that I am quite interested in, or Hall Wilcox is something I would like to be a part of? What did you learn, Ariana?
Yeah, definitely. I think the application process is very onerous, and it's quite an emotional process to go through. So definitely make sure that you take care of yourself when you do apply to firms. And one tip is to try not to compare yourself to other students, because I think that can get to your head. So something that I learned is that it's always best to be genuine and be yourself. You always hear that, and you don't really understand what it means until you actually join the flip side and you are part of the firm. So I think it's always a good idea to be open to working in different areas of the law. So get to know what areas we practice in, have a look at our website, speak to representatives from the firm, try to make those connections and networks before you do apply, because I do think it really makes a difference. And then show that you're interested, talk about your hobbies, your interests outside of work, and just be yourself and put your best self forward. I think those would be my number one tips going into the application process. When it comes to the interview stage, obviously prepare the best you can, have a document with all your different questions that often come up during the interview stages, and make sure that you rehearse these with a friend or a family member, because you always realize how monotonous you can sound once you do actually start to practice and hear yourself answer the questions. I think these will be my number one tips for the time being.
Yeah, and I think that's a really important thing to understand is being yourself is very critical, and just being able to reflect a little bit on what your interests are can go a long way. So with that then, Ariana, how would you describe your experience with working at the firm? What have you been involved in?
Yeah, thank you. That's a great question. So like you mentioned before, I did have the opportunity to start my career at Hall Wilcox as a paralegal before I commenced my clerkship in June, July 2022. I was lucky enough to have a role in the library as a research assistant. So my role was basically assisting the different commercial and litigious teams with research. And I got to get a really good insight into the work that the litigious teams focus on. And that really helped me when I started my clerkship, because I had a really good understanding of what research is like, the resources that are available as part of the library, and also what the expectations are with respect to research memorandums, and what do the clients look for, and what does an advice need to focus on. Obviously, there's many differences between practice groups and the type of matter that you're working on, but I think my experience in the library gave me a really good insight into what it's like being a clerk. And during my clerkship, I did 2 rotations. My first one was in commercial dispute resolution, and the second rotation was in general insurance. Both rotations were excellent. I had a really good time networking with the team, and I got involved in real disputes. They gave me a lot of responsibility, and they really trusted in me, which was a really encouraging thing. As a junior, you always feel like you are coming in knowing nothing. You don't particularly add value, but I think the number one thing to remember is that if you've got the right attitude, if you immerse yourself into the work and you work hard and do connect with the team, then you are adding value. And that's all you can do at the junior level, really, because I'm sure that, Sean, you can agree, you don't really know much after you finish law school. 5 or 6 years.
Experience makes the difference. Sure, the studying helps, but experience is really, really helpful. Absolutely.
100%. Tell me about yourself, Sean, and what attracted you to the firm. I think you started as a paralegal in the Brisbane office, and you were particularly working in the statutory insurance team. Tell us a little bit about what that was like.
Yeah, absolutely. So overall, my application process was a little bit more interesting than what I had anticipated. See, whereas you were able to join with the firm directly as a paralegal, Ariana, you had the firm advertised to you first and foremost. I actually was able to join the firm through connections. What I used to do was I used to work as an essential worker throughout COVID in the supply and distribution chain. So I wasn't truly familiar with Hall and Wilcox before. I didn't get a chance to see briefs or see much of the name pop up in my day-to-day. But I was actually just working in a warehouse, doing night shift whilst I was completing my studies at university. I made some connections there, spoke to some friends, and there was one person in particular that referred me to an opening that Hall and Wilcox had. So what I did was I then, I drafted a cover letter, I updated my resume, and I was also recommended to update my LinkedIn just in case. So what I did there, I sent in my application. That was probably late 2021, and then soon thereafter, I got a call advising me that I had been successful and that I would be joining the Statutory Insurance Queensland team as a paralegal. So I started to join and ease into Hall Wilcox in around January 2022, and I had the opportunity to work from home throughout most of that time simply because of the COVID outbreak that was happening there. So I had a fantastic opportunity there. So whilst I was doing that, I was also getting familiar with the Statutory Insurance Queensland team, what it means to be a part of Hall Wilcox, this fantastic culture and community that we have here. So overall, I've had a very, very fantastic and worthwhile experience being able to help contribute to quite meaningful work, I would say. So yeah, that's essentially my part of my story there, Ariana.
It's great. And it would have been a little bit challenging, I presume, starting at a firm during COVID. How did you find connecting with the team and keeping up to date with keeping up to speed with what's happening in the statutory insurance space?
Absolutely. I won't lie. There are definitely some difficulties with that. I don't know about you, but I'm someone that I do like to come into the office, even though I like to be a bit flexible with things. I do like to come to the office, say hi to my friends and my colleagues. So when I first started, I think, it was quite a tumultuous period at the start of 2022 when that outbreak was happening. So I didn't have the opportunity to make as many connections to begin with. So there was that difficulty there where it makes it a little bit harder where you can't see someone face to face for at least some time, or you might know of someone, but you haven't met them yet, or something along those lines. But what did help was that the firm was perhaps acutely aware of the situation outside of the office. And so at every sort of point in time, my team was checking in with me, introducing themselves to me, making sure that I was okay, that I was on track, that I sort of understood the work that was going on, and that I was in a way safe as well, during this time. So it was a difficult period, but I think because of how aware and how good our teams are, it helped to mitigate a lot of that pressure.
Yeah, agree. And I started at the beginning of 2022, and my team was still working from home, but they were so lovely and welcoming. We had team meetings every week, and we had team lunches as well via Zoom, which was really nice way to connect. And I think the quiz that we also do at the end of every day in the office really helps to connect with the team. So Hall Wilcox is really good at bringing people together. I think that's for sure.
Yeah, and just adding on to that, Ariana, you mentioned that you worked as a clerk in the commercial dispute resolution team and the general insurance team. I've mainly been focused in the statutory insurance Queensland team, so I'd love to hear a little bit more about other teams that I haven't been involved with as much. Could you describe perhaps what your experience was there, what these teams entail, what sort of work you were doing?
Yeah, absolutely. So commercial dispute resolution has a lot of sub teams. There is a big insolvency practice, a big financial services practice, and also we have a lot of government clients. So different partners work on different matters. And I think that's the beauty of commercial disputes. You get to essentially work on anything that can get litigated. And I was very lucky and fortunate to work on many different things during that 2-week period. My mentor got me involved in some government work, some land acquisition disputes that have been going on since before the 1990s. And I also got to experience a little bit of insolvency work and just general commercial disputes. The team was really good in getting me to attend conferences with counsel and mediations. So I was very lucky to observe counsel in their element and witness what a mediation looks like and hear what our submissions are like from a partner's perspective. So the work was really diverse and really interesting and commercial in nature. When I transitioned to general insurance, I had a very similar experience, but the actual area of the law is different, as you would know. So we focused on property damage, personal injury, personal indemnity, and we also have a big motor vehicle practice in the Melbourne office. I got exposed to a lot of mediations as well, which was great. And I got to draft a post-mediation advice, which was really interesting. And they got me involved in a bit of research as well. So the work was really diverse, really interesting, and you got a lot of responsibility from the get-go. Even though it was a short period of time for both rotations, I think I got a really good understanding of what the teams work on. And I also got to experience the culture of the firm.
Yeah, it sounds like you had a really hands-on experience, Ariana, that allowed you to sort of refine your understanding and experience of the law. And I think that's a good segue into just sort of touching on what a law graduate is. Whereas a clerk, it sounds like you had, a more condensed, shorter period of time to work on a few things. Now that we're both law graduates, Ariana, I think it might be a good time just to explain to our viewers and our listeners what a law graduate actually is, what our role does, and what it entails. Would you be able to share some of your insights into that role?
Sure. So Sean and I have been in the graduate program for about 6 months now, and I don't know about your experience, but mine has been amazing. I've learned so much, and it's humbling how little I knew after graduating law school. So I think the main difference between being a paralegal and a clerk and a grad is that you get so much more responsibility as a graduate. You work on matters from start to finish. If you're in the insurance teams, you get to have oversight of every single step along the way, which I think gives you a really good insight into civil procedure, evidence, and also what litigation is about. You are also immersed into the different areas of the law that the firm practices in, and you get to actually do more work on different matters. So because we do 3-4 month rotations, we have the ability to have oversight of a matter across a 4-month period, which I think is a great opportunity to learn. I think the best thing about being a grad is how much the teams trust you and give you responsibility. So they know you're smart. They know you've done a lot of work to be a grad, because it's a long process like we've discussed. So now it's just about honing on those skills, refining your soft skills, and just learning how to be a better lawyer. What has your experience been like, Sean?
Yeah, honestly, I echo those sentiments quite dramatically, Ariana. So for me, whereas I worked as a paralegal with the Statutory Insurance Queensland team for the better part of a year, and then I transitioned into being a law graduate. And for my first rotation into a team, I also had the opportunity to go into the Statutory Insurance Queensland team again for the first 4 months there. Currently, I'm in the corporate and commercial team, but speaking to my first rotation, it's even looking at what it was like to be a paralegal versus a law graduate now. The role still is quite dramatic, even though the work is quite similar in many respects. I had the chance to adopt a much more substantive role, working closer with some of the team members in having a more hands-on, first-hand and practical experience in managing claims. Whereas as a paralegal, I did adopt more of a support role, still with elements of a law graduate, but I took a step up, and naturally the work that I was doing matched that as well. So for me, I've had a fantastic experience here. I've been able to make really close connections with my teams, and now I'm on a different part of the firm now, going from the insurance space into the corporate space, our main two distinctions of Hall and Wilcox. It's been very interesting to me. I have come into it with being quite green, but what makes that easier is that the team has been very mindful and they're very helpful in understanding where I'm at in my understanding with perhaps the corporate side of things, and they've matched that. So over time, over these next 4 months, I'll be able to slowly but surely increase my understanding and my experience regarding more corporate matters, which is quite a contrast to the more insurance-related side of things that I've been dealing with. So from here, then, yeah, we finish up. I'll be rotating into another team later down the track. And then from there, you do get a good chance to see, to have a feel of what team you're in, what sort of interest you have. See what you've enjoyed throughout your time being a law graduate, which will help further give you an understanding of what you might want to, what area you might want to practice in as a lawyer, or it helps. It does help create some sort of identity there. Do you share the same sort of opinion with that, Ariana?
Yeah, absolutely. And I was going to touch on something that you said about the support. I also come from a 4-month litigious rotation. I was in commercial dispute resolution again. So my graduate role so far has been an extension of my clerkship experience, because I've been in the same 2 teams as when I was clerking, which is great.
Yeah.
And so I've also had the benefit of having a 4-month litigation experience, but the team has been incredibly supportive in teaching me the ropes, because general insurance moves faster because the claims are a little bit lower quantum, but the volume is higher. So I think what you said before about moving to transactional and having that support from the team, where they know that you may not be across the subject matter, but they're going to train you to get there in the next 3-4 months is a great thing about the firm.
Yeah, I think that's really important to understand as well. Whereas although you and I, Ariana, have some background with the firm, that's not too central to what it means to be a law graduate. We were fortunate enough to be a part of the you were fortunate, of course, to be a part of the clerk process and paralegal process. I was fortunate enough to be a part of the paralegal process, but that doesn't really mean that you had to have been a paralegal or clerk to then become a grad. So regardless, the firm always keeps an eye on who you are as a person, where you come from, what your character is like, what's your sort of work ethic. And then from there, you get the training and experience to help build yourself up into quite a capable lawyer. I think that might do it for us today, Ariana. Did you have anything else that you wanted to touch on?
Not really. I was just going to echo what you just said, Sean. There's many different ways that you can actually become a grad at Hall Wilcox. It doesn't matter whether you clerked or you were a paralegal. What the firm really values is having the right attitude, being enthusiastic, and asking questions. I think that's something that we didn't necessarily touch on, but the importance of asking questions and being interested in the work. So I think it's fair to wish everyone who's applying this year best of luck. Be kind to yourself during this process. When we've been through it, we know that it can be quite tough, but it's important to keep in mind the fact that it's also about you learning whether this firm is the right fit for you, as much as it is for the firm to understand what your interests are.
I couldn't agree more, Ariana. Thanks everyone for listening today. As always, please get in touch with us if you have any questions. You can find our details on our website, which is hallandwilcox.com.au, or connect with us on LinkedIn. If you are interested in applying for a role with Hall Wilcox, please visit our website for more details regarding dates and other application information. In our next episode, we'll hear from our managing partner and special guest, Tony McVean. If you enjoyed today's episode, then rate, review, or follow our podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you.
This podcast is not legal advice and should not be relied upon as such. You should always obtain legal advice about your specific circumstances.